here. Okay, everyone, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have some more friends joining us, but we are recording this evening. Thanks to Donna Hitchmanick. She's helping us this evening with our Zoom, which is wonderful, and getting us started with our page. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this evening, and we'll do some introductions, and then we will introduce our wonderful special guest for the evening. We're very excited. So we are so happy to have you joining us this evening as we officially launch our group page. As many of you already know, we created our own state chapter from a larger group called The Science of Reading, What I Should Have Learned in College, which was created by Donna Hitchmanick, who is on here tonight helping us, in August of 2019. Donna is a legislative chair for the Wisconsin branch of the International Dyslexia Association and a former educator of 41 years. And we have posted her blog, so if you want to learn more, we'll share more with you about Donna and all of her wonderful work, so we can't appreciate her enough. So our hope in creating a Kansas chapter of this group is to focus more on and share information about local initiatives. Our mission can be found on the group page, and it's very similar to what Donna has on the national page, which is to create a safe space where educators of all forms in the state of Kansas, parents included, can grow together in the science of reading and work collectively to implement real transformation in classrooms across the state through grassroots efforts towards community building, professional development, and legislative efforts. So basically, our bottom line is our purpose is to learn together, share information with, and empower all those individuals dedicated to helping our children succeed in learning to read. And I love Jan Hasbrook, if you've heard her. She's an author and researcher. She refers to this as the Support Success Circle. So welcome to our Support Success Circle, and we're very happy to have you. So we ask that you please just remain muted while we have Cindy Haddocky sharing this evening, but you are more than welcome to any questions you think of in the chat, and we're hoping that we might have a few minutes at the end for questions. If not, we are going to keep a list of those questions, and we can go ahead and answer them through our group page continuously. So even if we run out of time, we're happy to answer those questions and get back to you. So we're now going to take a couple of minutes to introduce ourselves before our wonderful special guest shares information about the Kansas Dyslexia Handbook and initiatives this evening. So I'll go ahead and start some talking, and then I'll turn it over to our other two wonderful administrators of our group. So I'm Tiffany Seaman. I grew up in Wichita. So from Wichita, I went to the University of Kansas and stayed in the Kansas City Metro. I was a special education teacher in Turner, the Turner School District at Turner Elementary. And then I was a first and fourth grade teacher in the Olathe School District. And then finally a reading specialist in the Blue Valley School District before we moved to Boston for about 16 months for my husband's job. So we just got home in October, very excited to be back home in Kansas. And I am currently homeschooling my three children who are 4, 7, and 8. All right, I will go ahead and turn it over to Gina. If you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Tiffany. We're so grateful for you for starting this this webpage for us in our state. And I'm just honored to help be administrator alongside with you. So I am Gina Shute. I was an elementary special ed interrelated teacher, and also first and second grade regular ed teacher. Currently a district coach in the Wichita Public Schools, working with school improvement plan work, just with a literacy passion and focus as we work to provide professional learning for teachers and administrators in helping to build the knowledge of the science of reading, the language systems of reading, and just how to bring that science to the application and classroom levels. So the work. I'm very passionate about the work and really excited about this opportunity in order to network and connect with others as we learn together to continue to bring evidence, science-based practices to our students across the state.
And good evening. My name is Renee Hopper, and I see a lot of brilliant folks in this group, folks that I have learned from, who I would consider mentors. So this is awesome. This group is going to just be a wonderful way for us to get the science of reading into application throughout the whole entire state to benefit students. I'm also a Wichita native and went to KU, so Rock Chalk there. And I'm an elementary teacher by trade. I started my career in California, actually in Santa Cruz, California, in a migrant school, and then moved to a private school. And I've taught first, third, fourth grade, and even had a year as a PE teacher. So I don't recommend that. So I am actually one of Gina's teammates, and I'm also a district coach working on school improvement and implementing letters as much as possible within our district is one of our goals. And like Gina, I have a passion for literacy, but also for teachers and professional learning that is relevant and applicable. And as who I consider the queen of science of reading, Louisa Moats, Dr. Moats, to kind of one of her quotes that really resonates with me, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, is basically that students deserve the best educated teachers, and teachers deserve the best education and the best resources. And I'm really passionate about that work because it's all about teachers. That's who makes a difference every day in our classrooms. So thank you for coming tonight, and we're excited for this group and for the science of reading.
All right. Thank you both very much. So I will now introduce our special guest for the evening, who has been so wonderful in answering my millions of emails and taking this time to help us in learning more of the Kansas dyslexia initiatives. We just are very excited to hear more. So this is our special guest for the evening is Cindy Hadeke, and Cindy is a former elementary school teacher and building administrator. She's currently an elementary program consultant for the Kansas Department of Education, as well as an adjunct professor at Emporia State University. And Cindy, please feel free to add anything more you want to as you introduce yourself as well. But we are just so happy to have her tonight and very excited to learn from her. So please help me in welcoming her this evening. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for asking me to be here tonight. I was telling Tiffany when I logged on, I was hoping that at least 2 people would be here. So I'm happy that we have this many. It's really, really great. I give you a little bit of background about myself. Tiffany read a little bit of my bio. I have been in education for over 20 years. I have been a 6th grade teacher, an ESL teacher, a 4th grade teacher, and a 1st grade teacher. And it wasn't until I taught 1st grade that I truly understood that I knew nothing about teaching reading. When I taught 4th and 6th grade, I thought, got this, I can do this, I can even help struggling readers, which I was pretty successful with, even with my lack of knowledge. I don't know how that happened. But when I learned about strategies to teach English learners, that's when the light bulb really started coming on. It was like, it really takes some explicit instruction for kids to learn this. When my first year, 1st grade was over, by the way, I got my assignment to 1st grade 1 week before school started. I had my 4th grade room already. I had a student teacher, I had my boards up, my desk all done. And a week before school started, I was asked to teach 1st grade. So I cried the whole entire first semester of 1st grade because they couldn't sharpen pencils and they wiped their noses on your pants. And I thought I would never, ever enjoy that grade level. After my 1st year, however, I was like, the magic is here. This is where it happens. And I had some students who were not successfully blending CVC words. And that weighed on me heavily because I knew once they left me in 1st grade that it only gets more difficult, more complex text. And that's when I really delved into the science of reading and understanding what best practice is in reading and started changing my practice. After that, during that time, I got my master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and really focused on effective practitioner. That was my focus. And I delve even deeper into brain science and learning how to read. And then I got my job here at the State Department. I really am fortunate to I know many people that are on the screen tonight. I'm sorry if you've had to hear me already once today, because I've done professional development today. And then I am currently working on my doctorate, and writing a dissertation is not fun. So I'm be ready for that to be over. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by giving you all a little bit of background on this initiative. It is not, this didn't happen by chance. And I have to give credit to the people who were behind the scenes on this initiative, because if it weren't for them, none of this would be happening. So in 2018, the Legislative Task Force on Dyslexia was established, and there was a House bill for that. And they were established to advise and make recommendations to the governor and to the legislature and to the Kansas State Board of Education. That was their task. So during 2018, they had many meetings. They had subgroup meetings and subcommittees, and they came up with these four main, I'll say, silos of instruction. Don't mean that like they were separate, but they were just four columns, four buckets of instruction. And in 2019, January of 2019, there was a legislative update from the Legislative Task Force on Dyslexia. And at that time, the legislative update decided that it was time to move forward. So in February of 19, the Kansas State Board of Education received the task force recommendations, and there was an internal committee created at KSDE. And I will be very honest with you, this landed on my plate at KSDE. I had started there the summer before, and I was really one of the few people on staff at KSDE who had ever taught children to read. So that kind of just landed in my lap. So fortunate that it did, because I've been able to work with so many professionals. So when I created this internal committee, we started making plans for how this was going to roll out. So from March to October of that year, I met with my internal committee, plus I had external stakeholders. I had school district representation, special educators, I had special ed directors, I had school psychologists, I had reading specialists, I had kindergarten teachers, I had parents, I had business, I had a little bit of everything in the stakeholder group, because we wanted to present to the Board of Education a really robust package that they would approve. That was the whole goal. We wanted it to be approved by the Board of Education. So in November of 2019, the board did approve those recommendations, which led to implementation beginning in 2020. I am going to give some credit here to Jim Porter. He was the chair at the time of this legislative task force. He's currently the chair of the Kansas State Department of Education, or Board of Education, and he has been momentous behind this effort. So he just has been. If you need to reach out to someone, he's the one you need to thank for this. The vice chair of this whole legislative task force was Representative Brenda Dietrich, and we had Senator Bruce Givens and Ty Masterson on this as well. There were several members that were non-legislative members that were part of the task force. Jennifer Brattle, Sarah Brinkley, Jamie Callahan, Tally Fleming, David Herford, Jennifer Knight, Alyssa Matoni, Christina Middleton, Janine Phillips, Jerry Powers, Angie Schreiber, and Sonia Watkins. All of those people are parents, are attorneys, they work in schools, and that was their dream, was to bring something to the State Department that would have some teeth in it. And as you all know, it has had some teeth in it. So let's move through a little bit of the implementation. This will go pretty fast before we get into what the state website has. Since this is called What I Didn't Learn in College, I want you all to know that all of the education programs for teaching have been aligned to the International Dyslexia Association's Knowledge and Practice Standards for Teachers of Reading. So that means any candidate who's graduating in K-6, English Language Arts 512, who's getting an endorsement for a reading specialist or who's graduating with special education high incident K-12 will have to take an exam of their knowledge of the science of reading. That starts now. So people coming out of college in elementary now have to take that exam. The other 3 programs, we have another year to roll that into effect. The standards have changed. Higher ed is now rewriting curriculum and rewriting syllabi. So it is embedded in what they're doing. They have another year to get that taking place. So in 2023, all of your college grads that are going to impact kiddos are really going to have this background that we've been wanting. There was also a requirement for annual training, and our department decided that these are the teachers that have to have this annual training. Anyone with any of these endorsements or any of these licenses have to have this training. And it's mandated. So it'll be part of any school district's, forgot the word, not recommendation. I'll come back to it. I'm sure I'll think about it. But they'll be held accountable for it through their school implementation program. Part of this program also embeds tiered level of support. Now, I am going to tell you that tiered levels of support has been a foundational structure of our school accreditation since its birth, but it's never been pushed. And now teachers are going to be held accountable. School districts are going to be held accountable if they don't have implemented tiered systems of support. So this is something that we have created, and we'll get into this a little bit later. These are some of the screenings that will take place. And this is so exciting because I don't know if you all received today's issue or yesterday's issue of the Reading League's Journal, but the main article in here is dyslexia, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of diagnosis and treatment. And I am going to tell you that Kansas is one of the only states in the United States that does not have legislation on this. We are pushing from the preventative side. We are not pushing to the prescriptive diagnosis, special education side. We are intervening as a state in the prescription of screening, intervention, effective teaching. For us in Kansas, this is a momentous accomplishment. Other states are noticing. I am often on the phone with other states saying, how are you doing this? How are you moving this needle? How are you doing it? And it's just been so important for our school board and our commissioner and our department that this is just something that we're not really letting off the gas with. So kindergarten screening consists of these subtests. All schools will have to report phoneme segmentation scores to the State Department. First graders are going to have these subtests, and all schools will have to report nonsense word fluency scores for first graders. And then we have 2nd through 12th grade. All schools are going to report oral reading fluency for 2nd through 5th grade. And this year it's going to be their rate or words correct per minute. We're working on a better way to identify students not reading at level. But right now, instead of a cumulative score, we're going to ask for those words correct per minute, because that's going to tell us, do they know the code? Do they know the principle, alphabetic principle? 6th through 12th graders have to take a nationally normed comprehensive exam, which could be NWEA assessment or Ames Web, or it could be a MAP. And if they don't reach their grade level benchmark, if they're reading below their benchmark on their assessment, not at grade level, they have to be given an oral reading fluency assessment. And then we have to determine their need based on skill deficit. And then back testing would continue, obviously, until we found that. I am going to tell you that for 6th through 12th grade teachers, this is a very frightening aspect of this implementation, because they really don't have the background or the knowledge. It's going to take a lot of professional development and a lot of patience with school systems, and to help them ease into this new way of thinking about intervention and screening. The dyslexia webpage is now up and running, which we're going to look at in just a few minutes. And it was updated to have those consistent communication to the field, to parents, to school districts, to other stakeholders in the communities. We want to make sure that timelines are there, training guidelines are there, and that there is actually information for parents on there. We have an informational flyer that was made by the Kansas Parent Resource Center, KPERC is what we call it. There's now tools to evaluate structured literacy. We're working on creating a very in-depth tool for that. It's still in the process, but we have one now that's in our handbook that we're letting schools have access to. And then of course, our handbook was just approved and published. So I want to talk a little bit about the science of reading. I know you all know this, but to me, this is a very simple image to show people who don't understand what the science of reading is about. We all know the simple view of reading, the word recognition and language comprehension. And I use this illustration often in my training because the little girl on the left, she is not reading with comprehension skills because all of her time is spent decoding. She doesn't have the alphabetic principle down. However, the little boy on the right, he totally has the decoding alphabetic principle down, and now he can spend all of his time with the language comprehension piece. So to me, this is just a really quick, simple image that I can give to people I call lay people who really aren't reading specialists, who really don't understand how reading works. And it's been a pretty powerful image for a lot of people. And then we all know what the elements in structured literacy are. So we are now implementing structured literacy. All schools will be implementing structured literacy in August. Now I want to tell this group something that I am giving schools the caution as well. Even though implementation should begin in August, there is no way, no how, no expectation that every school in every district, in every community in our state will fully be ready to launch structured literacy because of the amount of training it involves. You can't have an overview of this and implement it with fidelity. It just can't be done. So the training is going to be there. So we fully expect districts to begin implementation by maybe purchasing a resource to teach with, maybe providing some intense professional development, maybe providing letters training, doing something that's going to give teachers that information. Now, we are expecting this type of instruction to begin in the fall, but I am not expecting a kindergarten to rewrite their curriculum between now and August. COVID is here, and we have to give a little bit of grace to what's going on in education right now because of COVID. So yes, this begins in August, but we have to understand as a community, as parents, as stakeholders, that there is absolutely no way that we can turn the boat completely around and be ready to move from a F&P program to structured literacy in a few short months. So the boat is turning and it is going to take a while. So just we are holding schools accountable, however. And then here is the information on structured literacy. And I want to just reiterate something here. We are a local control state. We have determined as a Board of Ed and as our department that evidence-based literacy programs and practices must be utilized. That's no given. However, we are a local control state. Our state Board of Ed, our state Department of Education cannot dictate curriculum. We cannot say, you must use Orton Gillingham, you must use Wilson Reading, you must use, we can't do that. Now, we can't even hint at it because if me as a State Department representative or a representative of the state comes out to and does an event like this and I say, yes, I think you should use, I'll just give an example. I would never say this, but Wonders, you should use that program. Then I am held responsible if school districts aren't using it, or it is looking like I am getting maybe something on the side from that program saying that I should encourage schools to use it. So we are very agnostic when it comes to programs. We are not agnostic when it comes to practices. Practices are practices that have to be effective. Programs, school districts are allowed to choose their own programs. Now, if someone calls me and has a private conversation with me, I will point them in the right direction through a few questions, but we just can't make a list and we can't post that anywhere, and that's just something that can't happen. So let's take a minute now and we are gonna look at the Dyslexia Handbook. So if you go to ksde.org and at the top of that website, there is a alphabet. If you hover and click over the letter D, there'll be a drop-down box and you want to click on dyslexia. So I'm going to take you there now, and I hope that my screen share stays. So tell me if it does not. Are you guys seeing my screen still? You see in the web page? Okay, good. Okay, so again, I'm going to hover over that D, and dyslexia is here. And this is the page that I've created with help of a lot of people at the department. Here is our handbook, which I'm going to go through here in just a few minutes. We have it in print version, so if you want to print it out, you can fold it and staple it, and it'll be in a perfect book. I have this universal screening brochure that explains each grade level and the requirements for reporting. We have a lot of great information on structured literacy. I'm sure that you've read the Structured Literacy and Typical Reading Practices from Deborah Reed at the Iowa Center for Reading Research. If you have not, this is a great article. It's just great. And then I also have all of these graphics to support. I also have Miss Nancy Hennessy on here. I don't know if you've read her new book, The Reading Comprehension Blueprint. Highly recommend it. It's one of the best books I have read in a long time. And she shares this very quick overview of structured literacy. And Middle Tennessee State University graciously has allowed us to post this on our website. I have a link here to IDA and their fact sheets. And then we have created this evidence-based reading instruction guidelines, what that looks like. There's reporting mandates for kids. We have this parent information flyer. So I'm going to talk to you about this for just a minute. Hopefully you'll see my screen open. So if you have parents, and one of the things that we're trying really hard to do is to help teachers and school districts not be afraid to say the word dyslexia. We are not diagnosing dyslexia in any way, shape, or form. That is not the intent of this initiative. The intent of this initiative is just like what I talked about earlier. It's a preventative measure. We want to embed screening, intervention, and robust core instruction to prevent kids from failing to read. So we have to be able to talk to parents in that language and be able to say, your child may not have dyslexia, but he's demonstrating characteristics of dyslexia by showing blah, 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 and giving those details. We just have to be, we have to be a little bit more gracious with this word and not be so fearful of it. And I think general education teachers in particular are very frightened of this word. They're afraid they're going to say something wrong or do something wrong. So we developed this for parents. And just to kind of help them, what is this? Why are we doing it? What are the effects of this? And why are we having to do this? And this kind of breaks it into a breakdown. And then we talk about how does the screener support reading development, which is really the whole point of this. That screener is that dipstick into, are we doing well? Are we off the mark with this kid? Where's the hole? How can we fill the hole? And then this is the most important part that I try to bring out to school districts. If your child doesn't pass a portion of the screener, we have to talk to the child's teacher. And one of the things that I am trying to get out, as you will, to school districts is that teachers have to have the knowledge. They have to know what's being screened. They have to know where skill deficits lie, and they have to know what's happening in core and tier 2. They have to know. Tier 3 is a bit different because in tier 3, that's usually where your specialist comes in, and that sometimes is above a knowledge level of a general ed teacher. But in tier 1 and tier 2, teachers have to know what's going on. They have to know skill development. They have to know skill deficits, and they have to be able to talk with those parents that have those questions. So we really want teachers to be able to have those conversations with parents without fear of offending someone or hurting feelings, because this is all about helping children learn to read. So that's the parent flow sheet. Here's the screening flow chart that I talked to you about a little bit earlier. There's always a narrative with anything that we do. But here's the flow chart, and this is what we're using to train schools with. A lot of schools don't understand that every child in your building should be in tier 1 instruction, that all kids get tier 1 instruction, all kids. It doesn't matter what label they have. It doesn't matter even if they're a special education kid, they need to be in their core instruction because that's where they get that exposure to that receptive vocabulary and expressive vocabulary. That's where they get that exposure to high level tier 2 words. That's where they get that exposure to grade level books. So we want to make sure that all kids are receiving core instruction. And then we administer the screening and we ask this question: is the student at target or benchmark? If yes, we just keep them in core and we keep checking every couple months and when we do our benchmarks. If it's no, then we have to do more digging. And this is the part that is really hard for people to understand, is that the screener alone is not enough information or enough data. We have to dig deeper with an informal diagnostic. And I think getting the language of assessment to teachers is important. Many teachers don't understand the difference between a screener, a diagnostic, an informal diagnostic like the QPS. So we have to get that language out to them so that they understand that screener is a dipstick. We have to dig deeper after we give it. And then we divide our kids into tiers, tier 2 and tier 3. We develop a progress monitoring calendar. Most students in tier 2, the state is saying that you must have a minimum requirement of once a month. You should be progress monitored once a month. Now, can you do it more? Absolutely, you can. I'm going to make this bigger, sorry. And then if you're tier 3, you must be progress monitored weekly. That just has to happen. So we implement the intervention, and after, let's say 4 to 6 weeks, again, this is decided on a building by building basis. Their testing schedules are their own. Is the gap closing? If it's yes, wonderful. We continue to intervention. When the kid reaches mastery, we exit them from that skill, exit them from that group, and monitor them for skill regression. Then if it's not closing, then we have to problem solve. We must go and see, is it our teaching? Are we monitoring the right skill? We have to problem solve and either change the instruction or we have to change the type of intervention. So we implement that revised intervention, and then again, 4 to 6 weeks later, we ask this question with data. Sometimes we like to get 3 data points before we meet. So if you're only progress monitoring once a month, that's 3 months of data that you're going to collect in a tier 2 kiddo. The point is that never ever are we saying you automatically go from screener to diagnosis and IEP. That's not the case. Should you need suspect a exceptionality? Absolutely, you need to go to child find. Absolutely, you need to follow those procedures. Absolutely. However, we just want teachers and parents to understand that screening is not synonymous with identification of dyslexia. So that's the biggest thing we're trying to get across. And then we have this tiered system of support evidence worksheet, and we're asking the school districts to use this worksheet with their building level and their district level to evaluate their tiered systems. They're going to ask, are all your kids involved? What's your evidence of that? Do you have school-wide behavior expectations involved? And that's just part of our foundational structure, is why it says behavior. What's your data decision framework? How do you collect? What's your evidence? What's your evidence for research-based screeners for reading, math, and behavior? What are your rules? How are you making sure? What's your evidence-based curriculum for all tiers, including reading? What do your interventions look like? What's your protocol? Are your intervention groups fluid? In no way should a child not pass a screener and be in intervention for eternity. That's not the goal. We want to clean up the skill deficit and get them back into learning. That's the biggest thing. And then, do we have a master schedule that allows for intervention and collaborative time? And then are families involved? And not just notification of, hey, your kid's in tier 2, but are the families involved? Are we sharing the data? Are we explaining it to parents? Are we helping? Do we have a system in place to say, hey, parents need to be notified when we change this intervention and why we're doing it? It doesn't have to be a big detail, but at your parent nights, we need to explain this to parents and not have it be a surprise that, hey, your kid's in tier 3, they're getting some intense intervention. That should never be a shock to a parent. That should never be a surprise. We should always have that open conversation. And then here's your assessment plan evidence, and then your regular evaluation. we're asking building leadership teams and district leadership teams to review annually their tiered systems of support. And then are there ongoing revisions? How do we fix a problem when we find it? How are things going? Is the system running smoothly? So that is the evidence check sheet for the tiered system of support. And then basically training is right now, I will tell you, the training is going on for all teachers in Kansas who have those certificates that I showed you earlier. Elementary teachers, early childhood teachers, reading specialists, English teachers. And it's a 6-hour initial training. And I'm going to tell you, we had, I think there were 10 components of the training that had to be included. The legislative task force said, this has to be in your training. Well, there was no way we could put a training out that was in any way respectful of this initiative and not cover all the points effectively and have it be less than 6 hours. It needs to be about 15 or 20, honestly. But the initial training is just an overview. And I will tell you, teachers and administrators are constantly calling me, thanking me, saying, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. And I always tell people this, what you didn't know, you can't be at fault for, but now you know, and now we have to make a change. Once you know, you have to make, we can't be blaming people anymore. We have to just say, here's your information, let's do better now. So I'm gonna peruse through the handbook really quickly, and let me make it bigger for you guys. Here are the contents. So basically we have the IDA's definition of dyslexia in here, and then we have a breakdown of characteristics by grade level. We have all of the components of screening that I really hope teachers take the time to read, and parents. What is a screening? Why conduct a screening? The types of assessments we use in school systems, what these things are called, what's a screener, what's an informal diagnostic. All of these things here are so important to have in teachers' hands. Then we give them some evidence. What are those theoretical models of reading? For example, the Goff-and-Tummer, Simple View of Reading, Scarborough's Rope, those kind of things. And then how do we embed structured literacy? We talk about the principles and we talk about the elements, because one can't happen without the other. You can't be explicit and systematic if you're not teaching all the elements, and you can't teach all the elements without being explicit and systematic and cumulative. So we talk about that. Then we talk about reading intervention recommendations, and then we have these appendices. And this whole appendix A is for families, which is very, very helpful. I'm gonna quickly go through this. If this makes you dizzy, close your eyes, I apologize. There's really no other way to do it. So here are some of our characteristics of dyslexia, and we really try to emphasize that dyslexia is not reading backwards. It is not reading letters and words backwards. You don't know how many teachers think that they are, that's what a dyslexic is. And we have been squashing that myth all around the state. But here are the characteristics, and then we broke it down by grade level, because if I have a third grader, I need to look back to preschool and first grade and kindergarten and say, hey, were these gaps here? I've got to be able to identify where some gaps were. And then I have 4th and 5th, middle school and high school look a little bit different, because as you know, if a struggling reader gets to that level, their symptoms are going to show more in behavior, apathy, social emotional, those kind of things. And then look for these kind of common characteristics, colors, shapes, those rapid automatized naming kind of things. And then other academic, we didn't really get into the other forms of brain disorders, brain-based disorders like the dysgraphia and dyscalculia. We just wanted to mention those so that parents would have that information. And here's our screening information, and it's very robust. This is a very, very intense document. It took about 5 of us at the State Department to go through other documents, get some references and some citations, to look at other state departments' things and really compile this and make it a useful document for people. I'm very proud of this document. I feel like our department has gone above and beyond. This is an excellent tool. I've compared it to other states. I'll tell you right now, one of the states I always look to is New Jersey, and Texas. Those are my two big go-to states, and I say ours is right up there with those two states. Anyway, here is a page that's very important because we have a high level of students in our state who don't speak English as a first language. And there are so many teachers who think that, okay, if they can't read and they speak Spanish, special ed. And that is not the case. We want them to understand that there are cognates between English and Spanish, and there are some commonalities. So if I have dyslexia in English, here are the things that I am going to demonstrate in Spanish. And we really have to just explain that English is an opaque orthography. It just is. And we have to give parents and teachers that information. And then again, here's our flow chart. And here's our rubric that we're going to ask schools to turn in. This is how they get to determine their rubric. Did I screen letter naming? That should say fluency. Oh my goodness, I just saw that typo. I am so embarrassed. I will get that fixed. And then word sounds, do we do phoneme seg? So here's your checklist. And then here is your evidence-based reading instruction. Again, that's where we embed the theory and structured literacy. So keep going. Another thing that I really like is we talked about syllable instruction. I can't tell you how many teachers don't know what the 6 syllables in our English language are, or even how to divide a syllable based on vowels. So this is just the cusp of learning about syllabication and morphology, but we figure giving them the information, hopefully they'll want to dig deeper. And then we talk about intervention and recommendations and progress monitoring. We give possible measures. There could be more. And then here are our appendices. And I like I said, I'm really proud of the documents that are in here. Here is information for parents and families. And we really want families to know that there is a place for them to go should they need resources. There are a couple places here in Kansas that offers family support, and we would be happy to share that information. And then we have some more screening information. Again, this is more from the parent side than it is maybe from the educator side, so that they can get it in a little bit cleaner English. And then here's our rubric again. We have the full and complete rubric because here's where all the sub skills are named and where the elements are. And here is our disclaimer that the products listed here are approved entirely by school districts. We play no part in advising or approving these assessments. These are listed here as a courtesy and is not a complete or an exhaustive list. So just because your assessment isn't on here doesn't mean you can't use it. If it fits the rubric, you may use it. So, and if it's a valid and reliable measure. So, and then we have a scope and sequence, which I'm telling you, people need this. They need it, they need it, they need it. So we don't really give it by grade level, but we give the skills sequence. So we will help schools embed this into their instruction. If they say, hey, we're really having trouble with where to teach that floss rule, where should it go? And we can show them, have you done these prerequisite skills? If you've done these prerequisite skills, then we can help you implement that. And then those are our references. So I'm going to take it back to my slide deck. And I just want you to know that the Legislative Task Force has approved for funding of a dyslexia coordinator at the Kansas State Department of Education. It has been requested for our fiscal year budget of 2021, which begins in July. Now, of course, the legislature has to approve the Kansas State Department of Education's budget. Should they approve our budget with that added position, then this position will be advertised and hired. Currently, that position is being split between me and a couple other colleagues. We are just kind of doing the best we can to cover this because we know how important it is. And here are some things that we've done. We had David Kilpatrick do a webinar with us this summer. We had 1,000 educators from Kansas in this webinar. It was supposed to be live and in person. Due to COVID, it was online. We are now developing experts around our state to implement structured literacy element modules. There'll be 1 hour deep dives into each element of structured literacy and each principle of structured literacy. And they will be on-demand learning. So it'll be a video that'll be on demand. You learn it as you want. You'll get a certificate at the end if you pass the quiz. So these I'm very excited about. And then, whoops, I'm sorry. This is where they'll be published. Hopefully in March, we'll be ready to go with those. So we're working on them right now. And right now we're really working on getting some middle school and high school teachers trained. And we've done some oral reading fluency information. And right now we're doing vocabulary. Our next two will be the comprehension hierarchy and language comprehension for those middle and high school teachers who really aren't reading teachers. We have to help them with that skill. Here is my information. Should anyone need to contact me, my email and my phone number are here. And just remember that we are changing the horizon of reading in our state. And I couldn't be happier to be part of this initiative.
We are so thankful for all of this information. Amazing. We can't thank you enough for taking this time. I know this is time out of your day to, you said you've been doing professional development as well. So we are so appreciative of this. So we do have a little bit of time if there are questions. I know there were a couple of questions in the chat. So I don't know, Renee, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, so Cindy, a question that came up is the actual tiered systems of support checklist. Is that a K-12 document or a K-5?
K-12. We have to give some grace to our 612 systems though. I'm just saying, this is like talking French in an English class because they don't, it's very difficult for those systems. They're working on it. They see the needle moving. They see the urgency. We have to give a little bit of grace. It's not going to happen quickly.
Great, thank you. Another question is, do these systemic changes have to be adopted by private schools?
Yes, if they are accredited by KSDE, yes, they do.
Any other questions within the group? Feel free to put them in the chat or just unmute yourself.
I have a question. I keep hearing so much about letters training. Is there ever anything through the state? I know it's very expensive on our own, but I keep hearing it as a really kind of a gold standard in early instruction.
Yes, it is. Letters is supported by our Kansas Technical Assistance Network. We call that TASN. So if any school district can go to TASN and say, hey, I want some letters training, and they can either do a couple things. They can offer to provide training for like a district cadre and say, I'm going to have 5 teachers in my district who can train everybody in our district for letters, or they can do a teacher by teacher training. So yes, through TASN, we have the letters training. I'm also supporting another training called AIM Pathways for Proficient Reading. If you haven't been on their website, I have taken all 3 of their courses. It's AIM, it's Pathways to Proficient Reading, and then Pathways to Structured Literacy. And then they have a leadership one. It's Pathways to Proficient Literacy Leadership. And I've taken all 3 courses. There are 3 hours of graduate credit. They're tough courses. They're all online, highly worth it. Very expensive, just like letters. But we are trying to get people to branch out and do a little bit more than just letters, because letters is very much the science. I feel like AIM is more the application, because it's really about how do I take this and put it into my classroom. So we're promoting both of those programs right now, but letters is high quality. Both of those are approved by the International Dyslexia Association as well.
Can I jump in? This is Donna. We are going to be rolling out a AIM. This is a big secret, but I'm going to just tell Kansas. There's going to be, AIM is going to provide 25 seats for summer training on the proficiency. What's the first course again? I forgot now.
Pathways to Proficient Reading.
Pathways to Proficiency. So look for that. It's coming. So if you and a colleague want to pair up, you have to work in teams, and you know, there'll be 25 seats available this summer for that training. It is excellent. I know someone is going through it right now, and she said it's as good as letters. So think about that. There is another one that's not as expensive. It's called Reading Teachers 10 Top Tools by Dr. Deb Glazer, who is also a reading letters trainer and writer. That is very inexpensive. It's only $25 a month. And you could actually finish that probably in 3 months. I wouldn't recommend it. There's a ton of information to consume, so you could probably do that maybe 6 months or so. And it's another one that, you know, your whole school could do a year-round training, which is like $250 per person, but super inexpensive for what you get. So those are a couple options.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Donna.
Sure.
I just had a question about the checklist that the schools are required to then send into KSDE. When will that begin? Like by the end of next school year, will they have to send that in?
Yeah, it's a compliancy document. I found the word that I was looking for, by the way, compliancy. It's for school compliance, and the way compliance documents are approved through the State Department is every October, every system has to upload their compliancy documents. So this October, every system will have to upload their compliancy documents. I suspect that many schools will be conditionally accredited or not accredited in this dyslexia because this stuff is new, but then we recheck everybody again in April. So October and April are our 2 dates. And by April, I have no doubt that every school will be compliant.
Thank you.
If there's a school who wants to check into the structured literacy element trainings, how do they do that?
When they're posted on the Kansas Teaching and Leading website, it'll go out on all of our listservs at KSDE. So if you're on the elementary education listserv, it'll go out, English language arts listserv, curriculum leaders, and principals and superintendents. It'll go out on all of those listservs. So right now, that's the way we're advertising it. Yes, I will share the PowerPoint. I will put it in PDF form and I'll send it to Tiffany. Would that work, Tiffany?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. We appreciate you sharing that. Any other questions? And I think we can always reach back out as well. Thank you for providing your information as well, Cindy. We appreciate that. Okay, well, we want to thank everyone for joining us. And again, thank you, Cindy, for taking this time out of your completely busy schedule, working on your doctorate as well. That's amazing. And being part of our, what I called Success Circle, and joining us and growing and learning together. We do have our survey on our page. That's just kind of getting information to see where we should go next as far as content and what we provide to help others. So if you haven't taken that yet, we would love to hear, you know, what information you would like to see, what you would like to learn more about, and hopefully that will help us plan some future guests on our page as well. And then anything else, Gina, Renee, that I'm forgetting? No. Okay. Well, we just want to thank everyone. So we will have, Donna is recording this for us as well. So it will be in a YouTube link that we'll post to our page along with when Cindy shares the PDF form of the presentation. We will put those up on our page. So we have those and can share those out as well. All Right. We thank everyone so much for joining us, and hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.